It kicked off with a shotgun blast right there in the Smethwick car park. Middle of the day, a stolen Ford Cougar pulled up. This was no random shooting, it was aimed deliberate. One man got hit in his leg and foot, another man bolted, gone without a word. No one saw nothing, no names, no statements. The victim dropped off at Birmingham City Hospital in an Audi, bleeding but saying nothing. But what came after? This wasn't your usual street beef, it was the start of a gang war, spinning out of control. Retaliation came quick, the hospital had to go on lockdown. On paper, Sayan Karga and Sabiha Mohammed looked like regular young men, mid-20s, no big reputation. But on the roads, they were enforcers, soldiers moving for pride and revenge. This whole thing sparked from a stabbing the day before. One of Karga's people got poked up, now it was payback time. The way they moved was cold. Mohammed had the shotgun, he jumped out the Cougar and let off. The man they targeted had a baseball bat, but that wasn't gonna stop shells, and it didn't end there. A few hours later, another squad pulled up at the hospital in a Mitsubishi, fully loaded and ready for round 2. Quick one though, this ain't no celebration of crime. We're here to break down facts, tell the truth, and give you real insight into the names that shaped the drill scene in the UK. This is Ends Unshanked, raw tales from the blocks, no filters. Tap the like, drop your thoughts, and hit that sub. Let's run it. Police move quick to stop more bodies from dropping. This ain't just about two men trying to settle scores. This is how Karga and Mohammed ended up locked in one of West Midlands' most serious gang cases. But the truth, this story didn't start with that Smethwick shooting. It runs deep. Same cycle of street justice and gang retaliation that's been haunting the West Midlands for years. Karga and Mohammed weren't some top bosses, they were younger hitters, raised where your name means everything. Loyalty is your protection, silence is survival. Karga, just 22, was already known to police, not for big moves, but for creeping deeper into the drug game and gang drama. Mohammed, 26, kept himself quieter, but both of them were cut from the same cloth. New age shooters, quick to react when someone disrespects. On 21st October 2023, one of Karga's brethren got stabbed. The details still being checked out, but once it happened, the streets started moving fast. The man got rushed to City Hospital, and from there, the streets kicked into gear. Word spread like wildfire. Sides got picked. Retaliation, only a matter of time. Within a day, Karga and Mohammed were active. They grabbed a stolen Ford Cougar, lined up the target, and set the plan. The victim, linked to that earlier stabbing, was spotted in a car park near Farm Food Smethwick. He had a bat in hand, looked like he came for a fight, but what he didn't expect was the shotgun. Mohammed stepped out and blasted him, hitting his leg and foot. After that, his boys dumped him at City Hospital. No one snitched, no statements. That's the street code, no talking. But while they thought they handled business, the feds were already at work. West Midlands police were reviewing CCTV and mapping every move. What Karga and Mohammed didn't see coming, the feds were building a full case while they thought they were getting revenge. These two weren't acting alone. This was a whole network moving behind the scenes. Loyal ties, shared enemies, zero trust for police. Everything ran through whispers, encrypted phones, burners, and old favors. The Audi that dropped the victim, same thing. It kept the shooters off the radar while getting the wounded man to hospital with no heat. But police traced the Audi back to Capel Rise, Smethwick, proof that the feds were watching closer than they realized. The West Midlands Major Crime Unit pieced everything together. CCTV from all over Birmingham linked the movements. The Cougar pulling up, the shooter stepping out, the Audi taking the victim away. After the hit, they ditched the Cougar and jumped into a Mercedes. Another switch to throw police off, but that move didn't work. The crew's real power was always in silence. No victims talking, no witnesses stepping up, no one snitching. But Operation Target, West Midlands Police's crackdown on gang violence, was built for situations just like this. Officers clocked hundreds of hours watching CCTV, speaking to businesses, stitching together blurry footage until they had a case that didn't need anyone to confess. Karga got sloppy. CCTV caught him at a petrol station later that same day, filling up the Mercedes. The feds followed every digital clue: number plates, camera shots, movement tracking, no wiretaps, no texts intercepted, just patient, ruthless detective work. Mohammed tried to fade into the background, stay low, but ballistics plus the CCTV timeline locked him right at the scene. His link to the shotgun and Karga was all they needed. These two, they weren't running solo. They were just one piece in a bigger chain of revenge attacks. The streets thought their network was invisible, but it wasn't. In their world, it ain't just about who controls the blocks. It's about image, how quick you move when you're disrespected. That's what gives you power. But this violence, it wasn't wild. It was planned, calculated. Every move meant to send a message. That shotgun blast in Smethwick, that was revenge, pure and simple. It dropped not long after Karga's boy got stabbed. No police reports, no charges, no statements. But on the roads, everybody knew who did it. And everybody knew retaliation was coming. That's how the streets work, not law consequences. Karga and Mohammed earned their stripes by doing what others were too shook to do. The victim came with a bat. He expected to scrap, but they brought a gun. That flipped it from a beef to an execution. It made the attack heavier. It spread fear, exactly what they wanted. The control wasn't just in the shooting, it was in the whole setup. That stolen Karga wasn't random. It was picked out ahead of time. Cars were switched, times were tight, faces were covered. They moved like pros who'd done this before, but under that polish, the cracks were there. The control they thought they had, it didn't hold under real police pressure. Even after the shooting, Karga moved too confident. CCTV caught him again, refueling the Mercedes, bold as ever. That one moment, crystal clear on camera, didn't just put him in the motor. It put him right in the middle of the whole operation they thought was bulletproof. Mohammed, who fired the shot, stayed more hidden, but loud or quiet, his role was heavy. Stepping out that car, holding the shotgun, that's what earned him his spot in the streets. But legally, that move sealed his fate. This wasn't a case of mistaken identity. This wasn't some emotional outburst. This was cold, deliberate power play. Karga and Mohammed weren't lashing out. They were controlling their world and their name. But street power built on fear, it never lasts forever. Sooner or later, someone watches closer. Someone moves smarter. All that planning, flexing and keeping silent fell apart. Not because anyone snitched, but because the cameras kept rolling. The feds didn't need snitches. They didn't need tap phones. They had time, patience, and a city wide with cameras. And that was enough. The first hole appeared when an Audi that dropped the victim got flagged through number plate recognition. The police tracked that car backwards, straight back to Capitol Rise in Smethwick. That put the Audi at the scene. Right time, right place. And right alongside the stolen Cougar. CCTV showed the Cougar pulling up, then caught Mohammed stepping out, raising the shotgun and shooting into the man's legs and feet. The footage was crystal, no guessing. This wasn't some fight. This wasn't defense. This was a hit. What Karga and Mohammed didn't realize, the digital net around them was wide. Cameras caught every switch up from the Cougar to the Mercedes. They thought they lost the trail, but all they did was map it out. Same day, Karga was filmed cool as ever, filling the Mercedes at a petrol station. That clip recovered, timestamped, closed the case. Now prosecutors had video proof. The same man who drove to the hit was still with his co-defendant hours later. Mohammed stayed in the shadows. No CCTV after. No bold moves, but ballistics and witness timelines pinned him exactly where he didn't want to be. No alibi, no story, just footage, facts and fragments. The wall didn't fall from someone talking. It cracked under constant surveillance. The street code said stay quiet. But this time, the streets spoke for themselves. But the streets themselves did the talking. The moment the shotgun was fired, the countdown to arrest had already begun. West Midlands Police, through Operation Target, were already monitoring organized crime movements in Smethwick and across Birmingham. The shooting wasn't just a standalone event, it was the tipping point in a wave of escalating tensions. And after months of piecing together a fragmented puzzle, detectives now had enough to strike. The key to the takedown wasn't a sudden tip-off, it was methodical police work. Officers began with the end result, a gunshot victim delivered silently to City Hospital. No 999 call, no explanation, no witnesses, but the car he arrived in left a digital trail, a series of CCTV pings that mapped his entire journey, and that journey in reverse led straight to the gunman. Simultaneously, officers began cross-referencing footage of vehicles seen in the area during the early hours of 23rd October. The stolen Ford Cougar's presence was confirmed. The Mercedes handover was time-stamped. And then came the breakthrough. Kegar at a petrol station, his face visible, caught refueling the Mercedes. From there, warrants were prepared. Arrest teams were briefed. There was no rush. Investigators wanted the evidence secured first, watertight and undeniable. Once it was, both Kaigar and Mohammed were taken into custody in coordinated operations. There was no shootout, no chase, no dramatic resistance. The men who thought they had executed the perfect revenge attack were cornered by patience, not panic. In interviews, both men offered little. They denied involvement. They claimed coincidence. But when confronted with the footage, the timestamps, the surveillance, they had nothing left to say. Their silence wasn't loyalty anymore. It was the sound of defeat. Forensic teams matched firearm residue and clothing. Analysts confirmed the movement of vehicles. The shotgun itself wasn't recovered, but the strength of the circumstantial case made that detail irrelevant. The jury didn't need to guess. They could watch it all unfold. What set this takedown apart wasn't a single informant or lucky break. It was the sheer volume of evidence, layered, cross-referenced and surgically presented. West Midlands police didn't just solve a shooting, they dismantled the narrative that these men were untouchable. The image they had built of street power, control and calculated violence was gone, and in its place stood two men exposed and accountable. At Birmingham Crown Court, justice caught up with the two men who had brought chaos to a Smethwick car park and fear to Birmingham streets. Tayin Kagat, 22, and Sabir Mohammed, 26, stood trial facing charges of attempted murder and possession of a firearm with intent to endanger life. The jury, after reviewing hours of CCTV and forensic evidence, cleared them of attempted murder, but found them both guilty on a firearms charge. Judge Melbourne, Imman KC, delivered a sentence that reflected the calculated nature of the shooting and the reckless disregard for human life. Kaga was sentenced to 15 years. Mohammed received 18 years, acknowledging his role as the triggerman in the attack. In his sentencing remarks, the judge said, "It was premeditated and retaliatory. You believed you could settle scores with bullets. Instead, you've sealed your fate with prison walls." The courtroom remained subdued throughout, with no outbursts, just quiet devastation from the families affected. The victim, who survived the shooting, still refuses to cooperate with police. His silence remains part of a deeper culture of street code that this case sought to challenge. Detective Inspector Francis Knock of West Midlands Police's Major Crime Unit said after the sentencing, "It joins a growing list of convictions secured not through confessions but through data, surveillance and strategic policing." In the aftermath, community leaders voiced concern about the growing normalization of gun violence among younger men. Youth workers in Smethwick and nearby wards warned that unless intervention happens earlier, at school level, in homes, in social services, these stories will keep repeating. Two men now face years behind bars. One man survived the shooting he won't speak of, and an entire community is left to reckon with the cost of silence, the influence of gang loyalty, and the weight of reputations built on retaliation.